Reading in bed. Reading in bed.
Amanda, what are we doing today?
We're doing Reading in Bed and we're up to episode 38, I think.
I know, it's honest to God, like it. Honest to God, guys, goes, by the way, Andy N in the house first. And
Amanda Steele.
yeah, it's done it. People are wondering sometimes why we go on about this on top. That's a lot, really. When we first started off reading it, over 3 years ago now. It's a bit like my spoken language podcast. I never planned anything really, and it's just carried on and on, really, Amanda, isn't it?
No, it was just to see how it goes kind of thing. And it went and it kept going.
And it went and went and went and went and went. So now it's into our 4th year now. So we've got a pretty wide range selection of books this time as well. So that goes without saying, really. But news first now. You've got 2 things you need to mention, Amanda, haven't you? And I've got 1.
3. I've got 3 things.
Oh, 3.
Actually.
See, I can't count everybody, right? So, okay, Amanda, what's the first thing?
Okay, so the first thing is I've set myself a new challenge because obviously I don't sleep enough as it is.
What's that word?
I'm going to be, I don't know, I've heard of it. It sounds good. Never tried it.
Go on then.
And anyway, I'm going to, between February this year and January next year, I'm going to be publishing 1 thing every month because I've got so many different projects that I've either started or had ideas for and never got around to. So they're not going to all be like full-size novels. Some of them will be smaller booklets. And the second piece of news is that one of those is going to be first charging audiobook because I've been working with an audio narrator.
Yeah, you've not got a release date for that yet, but it's imminent, isn't it, basically, that one, isn't it? So
yeah, I've approved it, so it should be out in February sometime.
Fingers crossed then. Now, I'll get my bit.
Third.
Oh,
shall I do the third and final bit of news?
Go on, and give us all 3 then, yep.
Yeah, well, considering this podcast is going out probably about Monday, it'll be out by then. My new podcast, Ghost of Me, is coming out on Monday, the 1st of February.
Yeah.
And every week I'm going to be reading a chapter of my book, so you don't even have to pay for it. You could just listen to me, as long as you can put up with my voice.
Or like somebody that, should we say, are nameless, for you couldn't listen to 1 minute of your voice. So poor people.
It's terrible, I know. It's worse for me. I've got to hear it all the time.
I don't know. I've got to hear it all the time as well. So obviously, Amanda, people will be asking, of course, what does the future like for Reading in Bed extracts?
So it's going to be less frequently. So I have put a little thing at the beginning of the next extracts episode that just tells people it's going to be less frequent and to sign up on their chosen platform. And that way you don't have to keep checking and you'll find out when there's a new episode.
Yeah, so I said so that Reading in Bed will be carrying on as normal, our monthly episode. So I'm halfway through my first book for next month. I'll come on to that later at the end of the episode. My bit of news is I've got just about wrapped up my 5th poetry book now, actually, I haven't I? So I told you about that before, so, which is called Underground, which is a collection of haikus. And all I've got to do with that really is I've wrote 70 of them and I'm knocking it down to probably the best 50. So I'm probably going to get that out probably April, I reckon. So also on the 1st of February, I've got an latest album out for Ocean and the Bottle called Dreaming of Life on Venus. Is that a good title, Amanda, do you reckon?
Yeah, I like that title.
Yeah, it came on from that, and there's a big, I don't know if you remember, I heard about this at the time, man, last year, about October last year. It was when I finished off the 2 Solar System albums last year, re-vocalising the Solar System and reimagining the Solar System. So news broke in October where it looked like they'd actually found life on Venus, would you believe? Some of the actual basics.
I vaguely remember you saying something about that to me, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that's not the case now. Well, there was big talk for a good week or so on it was in the news and stuff, and I followed a lot of that sort of news. And I was getting some dreams and for a week every night I was very, very of what life in Venus is going to be like. Not like humanoid form like us, much more basic primitive life. And I ended up writing an album on it basically over about a month. And it's coming out on slightly off kilter records from Brighton. So it's been in discussion for a couple of months, this one, but I'm really proud of it, to be honest, as well. So what I did, Amanda, with it was, it's a bit different for me. I did a demo take on it, and I sent the demo over to the record head able guy because he wanted to hear it. And then when I finished it about a month later, he turned around and said to me, he loved the demo version and the final version. He wanted to know, could he put that on the one album? So it's about 50-minute album with 4 tracks. So that's about 1st of February as well. So watch your space. So, see you guys and girls. A busy month. Now, on to books. What are we doing books today, Amanda?
Yeah, we're going to review some books.
Yes, I think have you got 3, have you, as well? I know I've got 3.
Yeah, I've got 3.
Right, ladies first then. What's your first book called, Amanda?
It's called The Greatest Hoax on Earth, Catching Truth While We Can, and it's by Alan C. Logan.
Okay, the blurb?
Okay, so I'm only going to read a few paragraphs of this blurb because it's an epic blurb and I'd be here all day otherwise. But if people do want to read the full blurb, they can find it on Amazon. Okay, so when the truth is far stranger than fiction, award-winning author masterfully unmasks the myth of Frank Catch Me If You Can Abagnale with meticulous research and the voices of those who know the truth. And what a trip. In 1969, Delta flight attendant Paula Parks discovers a strange man is following her. She is soon horrified to learn that he has moved into her parents' home in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and is sleeping in her bed posing as a pilot. His ruse is quickly discovered, but not before he is caught stealing from her family and other locals. Startled by more revelations in letters written by the 21-year-old criminal from jail, Paula's parents lock them away, never imagining where those letters one day would lead. For decades, Frank W. Abagnale's story has captured the imagination and audiences around the world as a modern-day folk hero, but the truth could not be more different from the fictitious autobiography he sold to Hollywood. Self-proclaimed as the world's greatest conman, the true dimensions of Abagnale's hoax are revealed for the first time in this dramatic true story. And I'll cut off there, but there's like 3-4 more paragraphs of blurb after that. But it gives you the gist of the book anyway.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about the film, aren't we, in a minute? Because, like I said, we've both seen the film gradually recently that this is talking about. But you read the book before, Amanda, didn't you? So,
yeah,
what made you want to go with this?
Much.
What made you want to go and read this book?
I came across it, but I wasn't expecting much from it. I thought it's over 400 words. It's going to be a tough read. But
400
I was actually
words?
surprised.
400 words?
No, 400 pages. I hit my foot yesterday. I'm in pain. That's my excuse.
I'm saying nothing, right? So I know I have to put up with it. So anyway, no. Okay, it's 400 pages. And you always look at books like when you get to that sort of length, it becomes a hard. It's not the case. You were dealing with not always the case. It's a hard read. It takes a lot of time, doesn't it? Really, when you get to that length of the book, I think.
Yeah, I'd never watched the film, so I didn't know if it was going to be any good. The book, but I got it anyway, and I got into it. Actually, it wasn't that hard to read.
Okay.
And it made me want to watch the film, which we did go on to watch because I wanted to compare like what the film's version was and what the actual version was told by people with actual proof to back it up.
Yeah, of course. So no, it's like I said, it's the film. The film was a bit odd, to put it bluntly to you. So very like a weird comedy, really. The film, wasn't it? So there is, but obviously we're here to talk about the book, really. So I don't want to go around comparing it if I've not read the book. So tell people what you liked about the book first of all, Amanda.
So what the author's done is he's spoken to this woman who's mentioned in the blurb whose family got ripped off by him, and also to his manager who used to book his public appearances, and all the people involved in the places like where he claimed he was a doctor and an airline pilot and worked for the FBI, and basically got quotes and evidence to back it all up that he was just talking something that I don't want to say, or we'll have to label this explicit.
Yeah, it begins with B and ends in S, that's your clue, right? So
yeah.
I see.
A nickname in Billy.
Yeah. Exactly, that's one other way of putting it. So yeah, it was, I said, the film's a bit odd, but so tell us, obviously, carry on, Amanda, tell a bit more about what you liked about this book.
So I had the ebook version, which is helpful because then there's like little numbers against each one and you can click on it to see the proof and the quotes that are backed up, which obviously you wouldn't be able to do with the book. I'm guessing you'd have to like look in the back and see based on numbers. It'd be like a glossary or something.
Hmm.
So it was easier reading it from the ebook, I think, because you just like click on it then and then go back to the book.
Yeah, it sounded like it's one of those sort of books. Definitely, if people are interested. Like if you'd ended up like going along, like I said, reading it on the actual paper, the footnotes must have been pretty lengthy at the bottom of the book, then probably weren't they? So
Yeah,
that would have
what
been
I
the
found
case.
interesting. Yeah, what I found interesting as well is there was a couple of journalists quite early on who exposed him as a fraud, and it seemed to stop him from like doing public appearances for maybe a few months or years at a time, and then he'd pop back up again, and it'd be like it was all forgotten, and people would pay to see him and buy his book and sign it, and they just seemed quite happy to believe it. It's
People are
very
weird.
strange.
People are weird at the best of times of it. So, okay. So, what was it? Is it like a non-fiction investigation book? Then really, is it like a debunking sort of book?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I probably missed it somewhere. I wasn't sure what the motivation for the author doing this was, unless he just thought, I want to write a book exposing it. But you could see like the motivation is Paula had because the family got ripped off, and then the manager also would have known stuff, so he would have wanted to tell his side of the story. But it was really interesting though.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of it. So definitely with that one. So now, obviously I'm going to talk a bit about the film, of course, in a moment or two. But is there anything you want
Yeah.
to talk about on the pluses of the book before we go to negatives?
No, I don't think so. I'll mention the film because obviously I did them in the wrong order. Most people would have seen the film and then they might have stumbled across this book if they've even come across this book at all. I did it the other way around. And it's like watching the film and knowing what I know and the things that it was coming out with. We were just looking at each other. What we're like, no, that would happen. It's like,
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. How could anyone believe that ever happened?
I just found it, like I said, it was almost like told like a fairy tale, and it was really, really quite a strange film to watch. Truth be told, you.
No, and you could buy for slightly that like, oh well, it's been made by Hollywood, maybe they've changed a lot. But then at the end, where it goes on to say like he worked for the FBI, and it's like having read this book, and it's like, no, he didn't. The FBI said he never worked for them.
That's what you struck me on. You said that before, man. It sounded like, didn't it? Like they almost took complete liberties with the truth from the book. So
Yeah, normally when the film ends like that and you get the words coming up and it tells you like what's happened, that should be believable, I think, even if the film's not. The text at the end should actually be based on fact, and it wasn't.
yeah, that's what it struck me as when you said Monday, didn't you? This is very, very strange. So now, is there anything else you want to talk about with this book then before we get to the next stage?
No, I think I've covered it really. I could see why it was so long because there was a lot to cover and he had a lot of proof, and obviously he wanted to back up what he was saying in a way that the story that Frank Abagnale said wasn't backed up. So he wanted to say, well, actually, this is the truth and I've backed it up.
Yeah, I get you completely. So it sounds like it was. But did you find then? Did it take you a while to read this book with another 400 pages?
I think I got through it in less than a week.
That's pretty good going, that, love. Very structure for that one. So I think that's impressive because I know the first book I'm going to come on to in a minute. Mine was 450 pages, and that took me a while to read it because it wasn't quite turn that the topic. So okay. Is there anything else we need to comment on this book then before we go to your mark?
No, I've got nothing else to say about it.
What are you going to mark this book out of 10 then?
I'm going to give it a 10 because of sheer hard work and research that's gone into it.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot out of the book as well, Amanda, with it as well. Did you find you got a lot out of this book then, did you?
Yeah, I'm interested in psychology, so I was just trying to understand from like a psychology point of view, like why people would believe it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into psychology on the podcast, but I found it interesting because of that.
And it sounds like you did get a lot out of this book, so it's interesting. Okay, so it's 10 out of 10, everybody. And what does 10 out of 10 mean, Amanda, in the world of reading in bed?
It means go and read it.
Yeah, it's a major recommendation. And the next question is going to be are we going to carry on being as positive in this series today, Amanda? What do you think?
Only time will tell.
Exactly so. And who's going to be reading next?
You're going to be reviewing a book, and I have no idea what it is.
Mine's grim. This is a really grim book. Set in the
Is it grim but good?
it's grim but depressing, that's for sure with it. So it's set in the tail end of the Second World War in Czechoslovakia. So I took it in a very different direction. But yeah, wait and see. You have to, if you want to find out what I'm reading, come back and hang around. I want to hear more people, Amanda.
Yeah.
Right. And in the meantime, then everybody, stay safe and stay over. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
See you all in 2 seconds. Shake to that. Tongue in teeth. See you 2 shakes of the dice, guy. Bye.
Reading and bet.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and
Andy Ann, episode 38 as well. Okay, Amanda, what do you want me to tell you next?
the title of the book might help in case
Yeah,
people want to read
okay.
it.
My Czechoslovakian's rubbish here. I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong of the author's name. It's Katrina Tukaroff, I think I've got this right. And the book is called Goethe. Okay?
Okay. Is there a blurb?
Yes, there is. It's 1945. Allied forces liberate Nazi-occupied Brno, Morocco, which is in Czechoslovakia. For Goethe Sidnich, daughter of a Czech mother and a German father, aligned with Hitler, it's not a deliverance, it's a sentence. She has been branded an enemy of the state, caught in the changing tides of a war that shattered her family and her innocence. Goethe must obey the official order. She, along with all ethnic Germans, are to be expelled from Czechoslovakia. With nothing but the clothes on her back and an infant daughter, she's herded among thousands, driven from the only home she's ever known. But the injustice only makes Goethe stronger, more empowered, and more resolved to seek justice. Her journey is a relentless quest for a seemingly impossible forgiveness, and one day she will return. Spanning decades and generations, Katrina Tukaroff's breathtaking novel illuminates a long and neglected episode in Czech history, one of exclusion and prejudice, of collective shame versus personal guilt, all through the eyes of a charismatic woman whose courage would affect the lives she touched, especially that of the daughter she loved, fought for, shielded, and would come to inspire.
Okay, so how did you come across this book?
Amazon First Reads.
That's my fault then, because I told you about it.
It's always your fault. So it was quite a long book, this one as well. So it was about good 40. You know, as before, everybody, we said Amanda's previous book was 400 pages. This was 458 pages. It was quite a journey, this book was. So.
Okay, so let's start with any good points.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of good points. Also, some few things on what we'll come to weaknesses later. Now, It's interesting, Amanda, this really, because if you don't know your history, and obviously, like I said, I've got a father that grew up in the Second World War, really, so he's kind of got me into some of these books in the past couple of years. This is a book about much as about history of a country in 1945, as much as a person, because it's centered around Goethe, who is a young girl at the start of the book living in Czechoslovakia. And I said before, her mother was Czech, and her father, well, German, who wasn't a very nice man to boot, shall we say. And starts with pretty well getting close to the end, at the beginning of the book. The war finishes, and Goethe's life left in peace after the death of her mother, and she survives the war despite some pretty frankly awful experiences. And to find out the peace that came after the war was just as bad, really. Because what do you know about the Second World War, Amanda? Let me ask you.
Not very much. I missed a lot of school, so I didn't really go to history lessons.
It's interesting to bear in mind because there's a common myth going around. As soon as the Second World War finished, everything went back to the way it should have been, and it wasn't the case. Because in England we were under rationing for some years afterwards, and I think as soon as the war finished in Europe, part of Czechoslovakia, which had been obviously invaded by the Germans, it took years to get back to normal, if it ever has.
Yeah, it would take years. It's not just going to just like snap your fingers and everything goes back to normal overnight.
Yeah, and that's what happened here, really, because the book itself, I'm not actually checked Trucator with this is based in fact or not, but there's clearly been a lot of research on it. There hasn't been, because he gets pretty well into the situation at the book of it, where the main woman and her very young daughter, with thousands of other people, get expelled from where they were, the men automatically get sent to work in farms, and the rest of them get sent elsewhere. And you're reading stories where if someone drops behind at the end of the march where they were going to, they would get killed. It was frankly
Yeah.
atrocious conditions that people came to, and it wasn't. It's a book, and don't want to go into too much on this because it's not an easy book to read because it's, like you said before, Amanda, your first book you read, was that quite a heavy book?
It was quite heavy because there was a lot of research, but it wasn't difficult. Sometimes it's like you just don't want to pick it up. It wasn't like that.
This is one of those books where it took me a couple of weeks to read because it's mostly because of the misery in the book. There wasn't much light stuff in it. You find normally when you read a lot of novels, there's a balance between light and dark in it. This book's mostly got the dark in it, but it's touching on what humans are like. And it really went on to a lot. What it worked well on was a couple of things that really stood out to me in this was, we had the beginning of it when you had all the seclusion stuff, when Gertrude and her daughter, a load of women, got sent to work in the farm. And then she ended up working for one of the town officials, logging things. And the stories you were seeing on that, the racism at that point in their town towards German people was horrific, whether they had aligned with Hitler or not. And it showed really, it was a good interesting point about the constant ethnic and racial division that still exists in society to this very day. And how Europe didn't really change overnight since the end of the Second World War. Because some of the stuff you're reading, it was awful. You were found then there was a case in it where the women went and found, I think it was a wounded German soldier in the middle of the fields, and they give him a bit of water, and they realised after they'd done it, also like they shouldn't have done that, because they've left themselves open to persecution themselves.
Yeah.
So it was pretty horrible. But the story itself was about Gertrude and how she survives with the daughter. Then basically, but there was like all the constant movement and the awful stuff that was going on. It was like how she came back to actually wants to try and move on with her life and eventually move back to where she came from, forgive everybody. It was not easy, that's for sure.
So, any other good points to the book? Do we move on to bad points?
I pretty well covered all the strengths of those. It is a strong book. It's not an easy book. So
the thing you were saying about the Germans reminds me of a book I reviewed quite a while back now called Humankind. And that was a non-fiction book, and it was trying to say that humans were kind. And there was a thing in there that said not many of the German soldiers actually wanted to be there fighting. So you see them as the bad guys, but a lot of them didn't really want to kill people, and were actually, if it's right, according to the book, were firing like so that they would miss them and go above their heads and stuff.
Yeah, I think war does strange things to people. Where have you seen any experiment? There's been a couple of experiments done, haven't they? With people in prisoner of war camps, and people automatically, if you're the soldiers, turn nasty. It's almost like it pulls a switch in people's heads sometimes, and that's why. And it wasn't the case in this book where the soldiers were the cruel people. There was a couple of instances on it, but it was what the town people were doing to people. It was almost like they were pushing out the virtues of society, unless you were a certain way.
Almost like you're frightened, so you're just like pushing everything away because you don't know what's going to happen, so you just don't want it near you.
Yeah, that's what this book was. That's what topic this book was covering. It went about the racism that I think showed it didn't change, how things didn't change overnight, and it hasn't done to this day. We've still got massive race problems in Europe and the world. So that's what I think this book, the main point of this book was, and for that reason, it was very effective. Okay, so weaknesses?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. As I said before, while it's a good read, it's a really interesting topic because it's not a topic I'd covered before, that's for sure. I did find it a real sort of struggle in places due to the ongoing misery and the subject matter. And I'm sure you probably wouldn't disagree with me there, Amanda, would you? If you'd read that, would you struggle a bit with that?
Oh, yeah. It definitely sounds like it's not light reading.
It wasn't. It took
with me not drinking in January, I think I'd have to wait till I was drinking again to be able to read something like that.
Well, we're recording on a Saturday afternoon here, so I'm having a stiff drink tonight. We've released. I finished the book up about a week ago. Yeah. Okay, but there's a couple of faults of it, John. Do you want the criticisms?
Yeah.
Yeah, the book itself is about 447 pages long, so it was quite a long book. And what they seemed to do, there's two things I didn't like about it, was on the last third of the book, perhaps 100 pages, it seemed to then start moving out to various people's narrative points of view. When the first 253 pages were most about straight in the eyes of Goethe, and occasionally a daughter, and it seemed to be too much then, if you know what I mean. It proved it was hard to follow. It was a lot harder to follow when you got to that stage. And there was also, towards the end, last half of the book as well, several letters started appearing in the book that were addressed to a mother and the daughter from other people. But they should have read, I don't know how true they were, but they're going on for 5 or 10 pages, some of them. And it took me out of the story. I think it was too much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense what I'm saying there, basically? Like, yeah, I think the ambition of the book's brilliant, but they tried to cover too much ground in places. And certainly as it went more years on, it seemed to start jumping more years, more quicker on, and made me wonder whether they should have been cutting the first part of the book down just after the Second World War. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So is there any more to say before you give it a mark?
No, I'm actually done to you there, okay?
So what's the mark out of 10?
What do you think it is? I'll let you have a guess. I like making you work.
I think it's going to be at least a 7. So it's going to be a recommendation.
It's a recommendation, 7.5. It's an excellent book, but it's not one I could read again, that's for sure.
No.
That's why. So like I said, do you ever find as a man when you read books sometimes? Have you ever wanted to go back and reread a book a couple of years later?
I've only really done that with a few books, like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and I can't even remember any others that I've done that with.
Yeah, I've got some I like going back to sometimes in a couple of years, but this isn't one of them. It was a really hard book because of the misery. So the next book I'll do in a bit is a lot lighter, and I think I needed a lighter book after that, really.
Yeah.
That's why. So, but anyway, but that's my part done here, guys and girls. So that's right at the end of part 2. So part ducks. So, right, Amanda, you're next, aren't you? So, have you got any clues for us?
Yeah, don't go outside. Stay in your home.
It's snowing, is it again?
No.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what this book is, and that's the perks of reading. We like catching each other out. So, hang around, everybody. We should be back shortly. Right, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading and bet.
Welcome back to episode 38 of Reading in Bed, part 3. I am Andy M.
And I'm Amanda Steele.
Over to Amanda today for a second book. Go for it, Amanda.
Okay, so my book's called Stay Home, and it's by Ava Pace.
Okay, what's the blurb then, Amanda?
Here's the blurb. Locked doors don't keep secrets safe. Lock your doors. Caitlin has been having an affair for over a year when the country enters lockdown. Suddenly, seeing her lover Daniel without alerting her husband becomes almost impossible. When she does manage to sneak to his home, she finds him lying in a pool of his own blood, dead.
Right, so this is a lot. This is. Didn't you? Haven't you mentioned this book to me? It rings a bell, really. Was it a lockdown book? But we're in lockdown or something, wasn't it? Did you say?
Yeah, it's the first book I've read that's about lockdown. I've seen other people bring stuff out, but I've just thought, well, it's too soon to really get a proper story and edit it properly. But this was about 9 months into it with a publisher, so I thought, well, it might be reasonable. It's enough time, and I've probably rushed it out so it's still relevant.
Good. Okay then. So, is there any strengths about this book in particular that you really liked?
I did like the idea because I know there was at the beginning of the first lockdown, there was people saying, oh, it's going to be difficult for people that are cheating now. They're not going to be able to go out and see like the mistresses or the person, the guy they're cheating on or whatever. So I thought, well, that could be interesting. And she finds this Daniel who she's been cheating with dead. So she can't tell the police because she's got to explain to her husband then why she was there and why she was breaking lockdown, even though obviously the murder bit is more serious.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's going to be quite an unusual thriller. This one it's a thriller, I'm guessing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's in the first person, so it's very much in her head all the time, even though it does switch between a couple of viewpoints. Because as it turns out, Daniel's been a very busy boy and he has a lot of women on the side. So many that I don't even know how he goes out to work and earns money to pay the bills.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that one as well. So, what's he have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah, so two of the women discover each other and they team up to try to work out who's killed him without their husbands finding out.
Yeah, is it okay? Let me ask you a question on this one then. We can with it. Is it one of those books where do you think it was quite realistic? Then?
No, not at all realistic.
That's
It's
what I
like
was
no one man is so irresistible that he's going to have all those women just like wanting to get with him and sneak around behind husbands' backs.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Right? Was he a proper gigolo then? Basically, was he?
Yeah.
I think I don't even use the word gigolo here. I'm going to use the word top man. Sounds like it's straight away.
Man whore.
Man whore. That's a good word, isn't it? So okay then. So okay, what was the pacing like of the book? Was it quite a quick book then, Amanda, to read? Was it this one?
I think it was under about 250 pages, so it wasn't that long. So it didn't drag on or anything. But the thing is, it's like, you know, when there's more and more books coming out at the moment where they're like unlikable characters.
Yeah. So you found it.
I know it's like, it's fine. It's like you have unlikable characters in real life, but I just think when you get where there's like nobody with any redeemable qualities at all, that's when it gets a bit unrealistic. It's like there were one other woman who was sneaking around behind her husband's back. She had 15-year-old twins and they seemed okay, but they even tried to make the boy quite into like, oh, he's going to be bad one day. Even though I won't say what he did, but it was something, and he snapped in a moment of anger. But I don't think he was that bad. But they tried to make out like, oh, well, he's going to grow up and be evil one day.
Oh God, for them, yeah. You're right. I think it sounds like it's a common trick sometimes to make mistakes, and sometimes novelists. You've got to be able to basically to give people something for someone to cheer on to, haven't you? Well, what was the journey like of the main two characters then, from beginning to end to A to B? Then
it was strange because one of the other women that lived on the street who was sneaking around with this Daniel, she had the habit of leaving food parcels on people's doorsteps, and you'd think, oh, that's nice. But then it was in a cruel way, like there was a fat woman who cut him in front of her in the shop a few days before, and she went out and bought a crate of Slim Fast and left it on the doorstep.
Oh God. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if you've ever bought Slim Fast, but Slim Fast is quite expensive. And it's like, that's an expensive way to be cruel to somebody. It's like, nobody's got that much money to throw around, especially in lockdown.
No, I agree with you. It's like it was. So yeah, it took me out of the narrative a bit then, really, didn't it, Amanda, with that? So
yeah, I didn't see the point of it in the story.
Yeah, no, of course, I get you completely with that. So I get completely with that. Said so. It sounded like to me, yeah, it was probably ill advised in places. So, is there anything else you particularly liked about this book before we carry on?
No, I don't think so. I think I've covered everything.
Okay, was there anything you didn't like about the book?
At the end, when you find out who's killed Daniel, and there's like one twist after another, and I just thought it was a bit much. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was just like, here's a twist, and if that's not enough, here's another twist. And it's like, oh, you didn't see that coming, did you?
Yeah.
It's like, no, because it's not. It doesn't make sense. It's not realistic. That's why I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, of course. Now, what I want to ask you about then, obviously, when you always deal with thrillers like this, is on the person that's the killer. And we don't have to give away who the killer is, but did you feel like killer had the prime motive for doing it by the end of it?
They had the motive, but if you've seen the character being shown throughout the book, it's like, well, you've basically lied to me. That person's not that like the way you've showed them, and because they've gone and done this. So it didn't seem like they might have had the motive, but they didn't have like the kind of personality type to do it.
Yeah,
it's just like, he's a nasty person. That's a nasty person too.
Yeah, sound like it was they probably overdid the book then, probably really, didn't they? So yeah, was it quite a big cast in it then? As a book, this was it then?
There was quite a lot of people. It got a bit hard to keep up at one point.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Sometimes it's like when you're doing books like this.
And if you've got everybody being nasty as well, they're just like all being horrible people. It's like you've got nothing to separate them either, so you can't even distinguish them.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me with this book. Yeah, it's like when you're doing books, sometimes it's like sometimes it's best in is just strip the characters down. Basically, this sounded like you had a whole herd of people trying to go through, and then it's a lot of the time if you're doing that, it's you end up underdeveloped characters, don't you? So, and that's what it sounded like this did to me.
There were no like qualities that were different. Everybody was just the same. It could have been the same person under loads of names.
Yeah, that's
They
what I'm
didn't
wondering.
create individual characters.
Do you think there could be a sequel to this book?
Well, I wouldn't read it.
Oh dear. Whoops. So that's give us a clue now on the marking. So, okay. What are you going to give us out of 10 then, Amanda?
I am going to give it a generous 6.5. That's the most I feel I can give it.
Okay. So what's made it just below a recommendation? Because obviously, anyone who does read in bed will know anything above a 7 is a recommendation, Amanda, isn't it?
Because I liked the idea of it when I picked it up. I thought, oh, it sounds good, and it could have been good, but it just seemed to lack, and I just can't recommend it. So I'm giving it 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, it was just missing something then, basically, wasn't it? So it was near fall. So.
Yeah.
Well, see, guys and girls, we've had 10 and we've had 7.5 strong recommendations. This one's slightly under, so it does happen this sometimes, unfortunately. Right, okay, Amanda. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Who's next then?
You're next.
Yeah, that's not
That's
my book.
isn't it?
It is like, you're next. You're going to be doing that voice then. You're next.
You're next.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
I'm
that hurt my
scared.
throat, that did.
It hurt my ears hearing that then as well. Right, well, it is me. So, okay, mine's based on the film. Mine's a book that's become the film. I've not seen the film yet. So that's your clue for the next one. So hang around. We shall see you all in a minute then. Show me, Amanda.
Yeah. Bye.
Say bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele. And
I'm Andy N. This is part 4, my second book of the month. So I did promise something before that was somewhat different in tone to the first book I read, and this one is as probably as different as you're going to get. So, okay, what would you like to know, Amanda?
the blurb. Well, the title first,
It
obviously.
would help,
not the
wouldn't it? Yeah,
blurb.
it would help. Okay.
I've got to read the blurb out and then we'll guess the title from the
Yeah,
blurb.
how's an idea, isn't it? Yeah, do it that way, can't we? So, really
Yeah.
make everybody work out then, don't we? So, oh, blimey, that brings new meanings to the word of detective novels, definitely. But this isn't a detective. Okay, this is a book by Alan Bennett, and the book is called The Lady in the Van. All right, okay. Do you want the blurb?
Yeah.
I've read some quite longer blurbs. This is the shortened blurb, okay? The Lady in the Van tells the true story of Alan Bennett's somewhat strained friendship with Miss Mary Shepherd, a crabby, eccentric, and unsanitary homeless woman whom Bennett befriended in the 1970s before allowing her to park a Bedford van in the driveway of his Camden house for 3 months. She ended up staying there for 15 years.
Okay.
Okay,
You've not seen the film to this, have you?
I'm going to watch it tonight, actually, Jonas, afterwards.
No,
So.
I haven't seen the film, but I know my mum went to the cinema to see it, and I think she liked it.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be quite a good fun film, that's why. So it's what's interesting about this, Amanda, is it the film itself is about it's pushing 2 hours, I believe. Do you know how long this book is?
I've seen it. It was quite thin, wasn't it?
100 pages. So
Yeah.
it's very, very slender little book. So I enjoyed this actually. I thought it was considering I read this straight after that rather depressing book than I read earlier in the month, and Second World War. But this was a nice change in tone because it's a very short book, like I said, only 100 pages, and it tells of 15 years of his friendship with this lady, which in the same breath is really engaging and funny, but also terribly sad as well because of the life of Miss Shepherd. And it's whether, you know, it's before we talked about racism, didn't we? And the way society pushes people away. this book touches on the same topic really, but interesting in a very different way. Do you get what I mean by that? Where, in the sense of the book itself is like, it shows how badly as a society we treat people that don't really fit in.
Yeah. I think we do that with anybody that's a bit like what we consider strange. You just like, oh, stay away from them. It's a weirdo just because someone's a bit different.
Yeah, I think this book was very like that, to understand. It was respect to him because Alan Bennett, and it's clear. It looks like it was a true story. This, it looks like she certainly was. She was quite a hard, difficult lady to get on with. That's for sure with it. And I think there was. I'm not going to read any sections out of this book because it's books done in a very diary style, short sections, and someone. It respect to him because like he didn't rise to the bait, and she really pushed him for the rinses. Sometimes she did. And as her health failed, he was caring for her, and like his mum that were dying at the same time. So it's completely different sort of relationships he clearly had to the pair of them. But it was interesting, very interesting. So, and what I liked about this book, particular Amanda, was
Yeah.
it was like was it obviously she dies in real life in '89 it was, and she died about 15 pages in the book to go. And it was after she died, I think he realised, and it wasn't directly said, and that's what I think the strength of it was. She realised how much she'd influenced him with his writing. And that's why I think this book's come about. Because like it's when you meet people in your life sometimes make impacts, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think this is a really good point with that was she really realised after she'd gone how much an impact on his life she'd made. I like that because he found out after she died little bits about his life she never told him, where she could have been a professional pianist, but instead became a nun. You worked that
a little
one
bit
out.
different.
And then became an ambulance driver afterwards. So, and then like I said, and it was a story. It's a story of a life, really, definitely well lived. And the way she showed to the very surprising show to the end of it, really, where I mean, life is like that. Where you've got good examples in your life. You've gone through various chapters in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, it's funny with people that have influenced me. It's like the one person that stands out most is someone I only spent 5 minutes with, and that was a careers advisor when I think I was close to being 30.
Oh, right.
We ended up in, and based on the advice she gave me, I ended up going on to get my degree. So
shows you they said it's people can make impacts in your life, and this is what this book's very, very good at. Is it's not going around and saying she changed my life. ... It's not. It's very subtly showed. That's why I'm going to try and watch the film because I believe the film's quite drawn out actually in places, but it's got Maggie Smith in, and Maggie Smith's always worth watching. Like I said, but this is I like the subtleness of this book and the brevity of it. I think worked to have been 100 pages. That's why, so. But that's all I've got to say about the Dreams of Amanda.
is there any weaknesses?
Like I said, for the weaknesses, this is opinion more than anything else. This one. It is a collection of short diary entries. When owing to the length of the book, sometimes left me wanting to know more, really. But it's off what I've had with the previous book, which was probably definitely too long, about 100 pages. You've got to, let me ask you a question. Is it best to have a too short book sometimes, or a book that's probably a bit too long?
I think probably the shorter one would be best. I think it's better to leave people wanting more than to leave them thinking, oh God, there's another 50 pages to go, there's another 250 pages to go.
Yeah, and that's what I think this book worked really well on, really, because it was only 100 pages, and I thought, yeah, I read this and there's nothing to hide. I read it in the weekend. I started it on a Saturday and I finished it on the Monday going to work on the bus. And I pretty well knew by the time I was going back Monday when I quickly reviewed it what I was going to say. And it was a real nice, short, snappy, and it was well edited straight away, even though the diary features on it. Very, very experienced, well-wrote book. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I imagine that will be with a big publisher, won't it? It won't be self-published.
I haven't got to admit it. Yeah, it was definitely a publisher. It was a big publisher. It showed basically there. I suspect with it, it was obviously being noted diary entries. Where there was a lot of work done on it, and it showed. Sometimes you get that. Sometimes some books you find books sometimes you can find that if the book's had a lot of work on it, it shows sometimes that it's not been overcooked. And it worked really well for that. So.
Okay, so do you want to give it a mark out of 10?
People may have spotted. I've been putting my reviews up Goodreads, and the Goodreads one's an 8 out of 10, but I'm not going to go 9 out of 10 with this because I think it's good enough for that. It's done it really well. And I'm going to watch the film tonight, probably after Amanda passes out.
Yeah.
So
He's going to punch me, knock me out, and then sit there watching the film.
yeah. Well,
That's what he
fine.
normally does.
After really? That's nice. And should I mention about somebody that was trumping all last night, should we say? And I thought she was going to take off.
I think that was you, actually.
Anyway, that's in bed. That wasn't reading, but that was trumping.
That's jumping in bed. That's a new podcast coming in 2021.
Trumping in bed, yeah. Reading in bed next time project. So, well, I said, just to clarify, is Goodreads review did say 9 out of 10, but I've had a rethink about it this morning. It's definitely 9 out of 10. It was an excellent book. So, okay, well, that's me done for this side, guys and girls. Next one is Mandy with her third final book of the month. What is your third book, Amanda? Any hints?
I can tell you that we're going to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong for it.
No.
Rat.
Oh, please cut that out before it goes live.
No. Leave it in. But seriously. Okay, guys and girls, we should back in it. Okay. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed, episode 38, part 5. I am Andy N.
I'm Amanda Steele.
Over to Amanda now for her third and final book this month. Amanda. Oh, but so before we forget, guys, I do apologise for my terrible Hong Kong Philly impression before as well.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was awful. Over to you, Amanda.
Right, so my book is called Hong Kong Rocks, and it's by Peter Humphreys. And do you want me to read the blurb out?
Yes, is this the one that you've done? You did this on Reading About Extract, this one as well, didn't you?
Yeah, the guy got in touch with me and he'd actually won an award for his book. So I thought he sounded interested and he sent me a copy to read and review.
Cool. Okay, Amanda, then go for it.
Okay. Nick Powell, arriving in Hong Kong with his soon-to-be ex-wife Lennox, finds himself drawn into the political machinations affecting the city of the Occupy movement takes root. A fatal accident exposes the factions vying for control of the Tsar and gives Nick the second chance desired by many Hong Kong expats. But will he make the most of the opportunity or find himself on the wrong side of history, shifting between a variety of unique voices? Hong Kong Rocks, a Proverse Prize 2018 finalist, is part thriller, part meditation on the challenges facing a special autonomous region punching above its weight.
Interesting. Now, what made you want to go with this book then?
It's not normally the kind of book I would have sought out, but the guy got in touch with me and I had a look at the book and I thought, well, it seems like it's well written, so I'll have a look at it and I'll give it a read.
Yeah. Okay then, so that's fair enough. I believe he does on it. It's an unusual book, that's for sure. Okay, what did you like about this book?
I liked the beginning actually. It introduces you to a hotel where people are allowed to check in as single people because there's a history of suicides, like people jumping out the window to their death. So the guy checks in and makes a big show of like his wife's coming later, and then he supposedly goes and kills himself. But is he really dead or not? You have to read the book and find out.
Yeah, it sounds like it was. Did you find it quite an unusual book, this one, Amanda? On the whole?
Yeah, it was a strange mashup of different genres. So I didn't know what I would really, if I was going to say it was a genre. I know it's described as being part thriller, and I suppose it is in a way, but it's this very strange book to describe.
Okay, so what did you get this on? Did you get this as a Kindle or was it an actual book?
No, I got a paperback book sent to me.
Okay, so was it quite a long book to read, this one, then, was it?
I can't remember how long it was, but it did take me a while to get through it. It usually does with paperbacks.
Yeah, that's fair enough then. So it sounded like it was something unusual, that's for sure of it. So, okay, so what else did you like about this book?
So it follows these 4 friends who are facing being sent out of Hong Kong back to wherever they come from. which I did, even though I read it and I reread bits of it, I wasn't sure whether they were from the UK because the way one of them was talking, it did sound a bit like he was from Australia, and I don't think he was supposed to sound Australian.
Right,
But
I get you.
that's the way I kept picturing him in my head when he was talking, and I don't think he was actually from Australia.
Yeah, do you reckon that was just you then, possibly that bit then, was it? Or
It's just the dialogue, the way he was talking, it felt like it was an Australian man to me.
yeah, that's fine. That's fair play. So, okay, what else do you? Is there anything you want to say about this book? Praise wise.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong female characters in it, but then it kind of gets let down because they're sort of in the background. So even though a lot of the stuff that happens with the men and near the end wouldn't happen without their help, they seem to be pushed into the background, like they just pull forward slightly when you need them to help the men, and then they push back into the background again.
Yeah, it sounds like it was. So that was a. I can't blame you there because like you've got to get the balance right at books like that. I think sometimes, haven't you? So, and that sounds like it to me. It's one of those ones that they made a mistake there, and that definitely. So, what was the pacing of the book like? Was it quite well paced book? Was it?
That's what I struggled with a little bit because there were pages where not much seemed to happen, and then the scene seemed to change, and I had to go back and reread the whole page. Like, okay, how did you get from here to there? And it was just like blinking, you miss it.
Oh, one of them was it? Oh, right, yeah. I can understand where you would have been a little bit. It was like, yeah, he needed probably someone to. Was it with a publisher this book then? Was it? Was it independent?
It was called the Prover's Prize, I think. I can't find it now, but it was something like that anyway. And that they publish it. So he won an award in 2018 for it. And they're all numbered. I've forgotten what the number this one was, so I'm guessing they published a number of them.
Yeah, it sounded like to me there was a. I get it completely right. So it sounded like it was.
So he's clearly done something right to win an award, because I've never won an award. I'm just thinking that maybe it wasn't quite like what I'm used to reading. So it's probably more me than anybody else.
Yeah, it happens that sometimes, doesn't it? Like, I think when you're reading books that you don't normally read, you can end up getting caught out with them, really, can't you? So that's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that sounds like that was the case here, Amanda, with that one. So yeah, I get it completely without love. So yikes. So okay, is there anything else we need to comment on today then? This book, anything else you want to say?
No, I've not really got anything else to say about it.
Okay, then we're on to the markings then. What are you going to give this
I'm
one?
going to give it a 7 because I see it's got potential and it's done really well. For somebody else who reads it, they might say it's a 9, but it's still a recommendation for me to give it a 7.
Yeah, of course. It's like I said, you enjoyed it, but I said it's not like it was the first book, a 10 out of 10 then basically. So this was just, I think it's it was a good steady book, isn't it, rather than a page turner. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense indeed. That so. Okie dokie then. Well, that's it for part 5, Amanda, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want any hints of the next one, of me?
Yeah, give us a clue.
Trees. I want to be a tree.
Oh, I don't know. No clue. No idea.
Right. Do you want it, guys? All should be revealed. It does sound. I've took a bit of took a Mickey a bit there, but this is not a comedy book. Okay, so say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Okay, welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and Andy N, who's going to read some poetry books.
Yes, a poetry book. Yes, yeah, poetry books. Oh, blimey now. I know. Run to poetry corners to conclude with today. Yeah, last one is this. I've not got a lot to say about this book, but I want to touch base with it really because it's by a gentleman called Chris Chilton, and the book's called How to Count Trees and Other Poems. Okay, Amanda.
Yeah, so it's
got a little blurb in this book, yeah.
And
okay, the book's about inspired by nature, the climate emergency, breathtaking scope of human existence. The poems contained in this volume explore the legacy and importance of trees in our history, and the culture and the stark battle to preserve a habitat in which human beings can continue to exist.
Okay, so
Okay.
Was there any poems that you liked more than others in there?
I liked a lot of this book actually, because it's my sort of book really. Parts of it kind of gets Walt Whitman-ish, but I want to read out. Should be probably be easy today to read out his extracts and talk over him. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. This one I met Chris originally through my Spoken Label podcast back into last year when Jeffrey Armour recommended him to me. And after I finished speaking to Chris, I loved his poems he read out. Beautiful stuff they were. He sent the book over to me, and I got it a couple of weeks ago. So this one, I'm going to read a better. I'll read out. The main poem of the book is How to Count Trees. I'll read out the first 2 stanzas to you, okay? And then I'm going to read out another poem, more some different ones as well, because a couple of them are quite different. How to Count Trees. The number of trees on Earth for the advent of human civilization, 6 trillion. The number of trees on Earth now, what do you reckon, Amanda?
I guess it's going to be more.
Less, much less. 3
Less.
trillion. 3 trillion. The population on Earth in 3000 BCE when Stonehenge was built was 14 million. The population on Earth now is 7.7 billion. The ratio of trees to humans in 3000 BCE was 433,000 to 1. The ratio of trees to humans in 2020, 390 to 1. The diversity of living things that thrive in and among trees currently on. Now that's interesting, really, because it's that poem itself is all facts. The facts add up a lot to what his point of view are in the book, because a lot of what this book works really well on is it tells a lot of his own memories and the way trees are struggling to exist in this human existence. Because you think really humans there's possibly too many humans on this planet nowadays, and that's some ways like it's time to get the virus out of the way, which was still in lockdown, and it wipes out probably millions, and it probably will wipe out millions. The actual way of life is like nature, the way nature reacts to it is quite an interesting thing. This does touch on a lot of that really, and because there's a lot of really beautiful poems in this, because all the poems in this book, nearly all about existence, are about trees, types of trees.
Yeah.
Some of them I've never even heard of. So you get one. I like this one, man. I read out look at another extract here. This is a bit more comical. This one, okay? Humble cherry. Seriously, in the entire recorded history of trees, has there been one quite as beautiful as me? I'm the always welcome springtime guest, more scrumptious than any wedding dress. You notice the rhyme there?
Yeah.
And
It's a subtle rhyme, though.
Yeah, it's quite
more subtle than some of the rhymes we've come across.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm both a veiled and flirtatious fiancé, and a brash and explodent Beyonce. A prima ballerina dancing in the breeze. Una direct capero on Tom Sympathies. The elegance of a Shakespearean sonnet and the coy appeal of a Regent bonnet. It said it's the use of language. You like that? That's really good, that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I said it's like he does it. Each poem itself is told all about trees, but the language, the way he uses language is very subtle. You've had a fact one, like quite a humorous one. And I'll read a bit in the beach as well to you. It's about beech trees, a bit more common this one. Early writing tablets are made of beech, hence old not book, old English brook, modern German book for brook, but brook for beech, thus was recorded into European speech. In Swedish book is book and beech tree boo, as book comes from breach and their stories are told. I love the way language in this book is really, it displays a lot of character, and it's also a very, very, very strong writer. You could tell that something. You read some poetry books, man, you've read them like me, you can see the writer is very good at one sort of poem, isn't he?
Yeah.
One voice, and this book's not. It's got a lot of different sort of tangents and way the book's actually wrote. It covers an awful lot of topics. Sometimes looking at trees, and sometimes looking through their points of view, and because of the way humans look at trees, the way life interacts around it. It's a very, very clever book, this one.
Okay, so is there any good points, some more good points you want to say before you move on to any bad points?
No, there isn't really. There's not a lot of stuff I can say in this book. I just think it's a very good book to ownership. I can see the Walt Whitman in it. Whitman, I studied Whitman at university some years ago, and it kind of shows the fact is like there's a last poem in the book. What was the last poem in the book? There was definitely a poem in the book, and I'm just flicking through now to the book itself where, yeah, a section on it, it's part 3 at the end of this, which is called Walt Whitman's Beard, and then with Walt drinking tea. And you can see what those poems are through the book. It shows what one made the major influence probably was Whitman's, but it's done in a very British style. So, but I think it's a very readable book, certainly. And that's all I've got to say, really.
Okay. Do you want to give it a mark?
What do you reckon I'm going to give it?
I think it's going to be at least an 8.
It's a 10. I think it's really.
Yeah.
It really
About
was.
2 10s.
No, 210. First and last one reading in bed. It's a nice circle today.
Yeah.
No, it's just like it was a pleasure book to read, really. 'Cause I have some months people know me reading in bed. I don't always like everything I read, and I will tell people quite bluntly
Yeah.
I don't like it.
You use this as your therapy, don't you, to have a little vent
Oh
sometimes?
yeah, you do as well, don't you? You're like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well, I've never. Anyone who wants to check back through Reading Bed archives, I've never actually gone on to read 35 pages of the book, abandon it, and then decline to review it and decline to talk and name what the book was called. Have I?
No, I might have done that though.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad, that book though. There's no way I could have mentioned the name of it or the author. It was the stuff I had to say about it was too bad.
I don't remember that one well. Well, I said this was just a pleasurable book to read. It was like, you think really, when you look at the books to read sometimes, this month for me, it's been like a real heavy book. I had a thoughtful comedy. But this was just quite wistful, and it was not. I like that sometimes in the book. It was very reflective, but it was a pleasure to read it slowly. So it has to be a 10 because I've got no faults of it. So, but anyway, guys and girls, unless Amanda wants to do a 7th book and she hasn't told me about it,
No.
that's it for this month, Amanda, then, isn't it? We should be back at the beginning of March. Now, is there anything you want to hint about for next month, Amanda?
I'll be doing a poetry book.
Do you want to tell
All I
people?
can tell you, I can give you a clue about it. I want to break free.
I want to break free. Oh, that's my good. Freddie Mercury was never that high, was he?
No.
I'm 15%. What about? Let's take that one to this. I've read when it wakes up. Yeah, I'm 15% into my first book for next month, which has got going to be quite a contentious book. This one, I suspect, as well, called "Girls Against God." That's by Norwegian.
Sounds like fun.
It's experimental, that's for sure of it. So it's quite a short book. So, and we'll see what else I'm reading after that, Amanda. Because I know, and we're not giving hints away, but I know you've got a book. I've got a book during the post on Monday from Amanda. So that's probably my 2nd book. And do you know what else you're going to read next month yet, Amanda?
I might be reading a book called Space Hopper.
Cool. I don't know what that book's about, so wait and see. So that's the perks of reading about. Sometimes we know what we're going to go for, Amanda, don't we? And sometimes we like to surprise each other. But anyway, that's it for today, guys and girls. So this is Andy N saying thank you.
Bye.
And Amanda Seals is saying bye.
I'm waving.
Well, we know that you're waving nuts, aren't you? So my waving nuts.
Yeah.
Right, seriously, guys, girls. Don Callis says, Impact Wrestling, stay safe and stay home. And say bye again, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye.
Reading in bed. Reading in bed.